Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we are hopping right back into our top 50 list. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen a ton of the videos that I've been posting recently about every single player that's been released on my list. Today, we have a special player by the name of Walt Frazier, and sometimes his close buddies, they might call him Clyde because that is, his official name. But, Walt Frazier, Clyde Frazier, whatever you call him, that is who is on my list today. Now, where does he sit on my all-time list? Which is a great question because I currently have him ranked 41. Walt Frazier is sitting at number 41 on my all-time list. And before we hop right into Walt Frazier, gonna need you guys to hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to hit that notification bell as well, because guess what? This is just 1 in 50 videos that I'm dropping for a 5K special for my top 50 list, just to get it out there so you guys can see what I think about the greatest players to ever play this game. But without further ado, let's get into Walt Clyde Frazier. Starting off with his All-Star appearances, he made 7 straight All-Star teams from 1970 until 1976. In fact, he was also a 6-time All-NBA player. 4 times he was All-NBA first team in 1970, 1972, 1974, and also 1975, along with 2 All-NBA second team appearances in 1971 and 1973. Now, a lot of people might not realize just how good Walt Frazier was on the defensive end. And he was 7 times all-defensive, all of which he was on all-defensive first team from 1969 until 1975. And he actually is tied for the 8th most all-defensive first team appearances in NBA history, and tied for the 2nd most among point guards like Chris Paul, and only behind Gary Payton. He also is a 2-time NBA champion, which I feel like gets slept on a lot. Like, this guy has kind of accomplished just a little bit of everything over the course of his career. And he was a champion in 1970 and 1973. In terms of his peak, I would probably say that it lasted over the course of 9 years. Now, I'm sure you can pick out his best, 1, 2, 3 season stretch, but I think his greatness was elevated over the course of 9 seasons, and that was from 1968 until 1977. And over the course of these seasons, Walt Frazier averaged 20.4 points per game, 6.5 assists per game, 6.3 rebounds per game. To go along with that, 2 steals on 49.4% shooting from the field, 79.1% from the free throw line. On all those accolades I just rattled off for you guys during this stretch as well, because he accomplished every little bit of it over this 9-year period. In terms of his playoff career for this time, he actually averaged 21.2 points per game, 6.4 assists per game, 7.2 rebounds a game, 2.1 steals per game, on 51.5% shooting from the field and 75% shooting from the free throw line. As we can see, he pretty much elevated his game all around from a statistical standpoint when it came to the postseason. Higher volume, higher efficiency, higher output. Sure, his assists per game dropped by 0.1, which if you think that's a really big deal, then maybe you're just a hater, but I think that from a general standpoint, he elevated his game in the postseason. Now let's talk about his efficiency. In fact, he was a top 10 finisher in true shooting percentage for 4 straight seasons from 1968 until 1972. In terms of the year he received MVP shares, he received votes in 6 different seasons. And along with this, he was a top 10 finisher 3 different times. And actually, he finished 4th in 1969-1970 when his teammate Willis Reed won the MVP. However, many have made the argument that with the Knicks' dominance, Frazier's all-around play, and more durability, that he might have the case as the best player on the Knicks for that season, and quite possibly the MVP award as well. Now, I think Willis Reed made a great case himself, and that's up for speculation, up for you guys to decide. But it is interesting to think that he had a pretty solid case at winning a league MVP at this time. Now, as you can probably tell, Walt Frazier had a solid list of accolades, but there are definitely some players that were elite for a longer period of time, or in their best version were able to accomplish maybe more in terms of stats or achievements or something. But not many players are able to say that they are 2-time NBA champions, and I cannot stress that enough. In his playoff tenure, he would average 20 points per game for 12 of his 17 series, 5 or more assists per game in 13 of his 17 series, and 5 or more rebounds in, you guessed it, 17 of 17 series. Now, he didn't drop 20 points per game in either their NBA championship series, but Walt Frazier did have an electric Game 7 in 1970 with 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds on 12 of 17 shooting, which is good for about 71% from the field, and 12 of 12 from the free throw line, which is a perfect 100%. And good enough too for about 81% true shooting before the three-point era, remember, in the biggest game of his life. Now, this was also the game that Willis Reed came back from a horrible Game 5 leg injury, and some believe that Frazier actually deserved this Finals MVP over Reed, which is fair. I mean, in a must-win game, Reed only put up 4 points and 3 rebounds on 2 of 5 shooting from the field. However, it was a great decoy in the same breath for guys like Frazier, Dick Barnett, Bill Bradley, Dave DeBusschere to put up a 27-point first-half lead and essentially ice the game early on. Even though Frazier wasn't the Finals MVP, he still dominated Jerry West in the crucial Game 5, which they actually lost to Willis Reed in the process, and led the team in efficiency and assists for this series as well. In 1971, the Knicks were eliminated prematurely to the Bullets, led by Earl the Pearl Monroe. Now, Walt Frazier was generally a player with no shortage of capabilities, especially on the defensive end. But when it came to the Pearl, it made life just about as hard as it could possibly be for Walt Frazier. In that series, the Bullets won the series in 7, and Monroe outscored and out-assisted Walt Frazier for this series, including a Game 7 where Monroe scored twice as many points on more assists than Walt Frazier as well. But in the offseason, rather than Frazier working as a snake, he worked as one who coaxed Earl the Pearl into coming into New York City. Now, of course, this could obviously tarnish his legacy, as you might think, but I'm just trying to give you guys the facts. However, even when they did team up, Monroe would kind of take a backseat role to Walt Frazier in the rotation. And in the 1972 NBA Finals, as Willis Reed had left knee tendonitis and missed the entirety of the series, Walt Frazier was first on the team in points per game and assists per game. He was second in field goal percentage and third in rebounds per game for this series in a brutal 5-game loss to the Lakers. However, we can't ignore the fact that the Knicks made the finals this year without Willis Reed for the entirety of the playoffs and behind the lead of Walt Frazier. In this postseason, Walt averaged 24.3 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 6.1 assists per game, on 53.6 shooting from the field, 73.6 shooting from the free throw line, which is one of the most forgotten great feats in NBA history. But in another championship opportunity for the Knicks in Game 5 of the 1973 Finals, Frazier put up 18 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists on 8 of 16 shooting while clamping up Jerry West on the other end. West put up 12 points on 5 of 17 shooting, which is good for 29% shooting from the field. And this game was actually the Logo's worst shooting and lowest scoring playoff performance for this whole postseason. Frazier wasn't the Finals MVP this year either. It was once again Willis Reed. I think Reed was probably more deserving of this one than the one prior, but Frazier still played the best perimeter defense for the Knicks while leading the team as the main facilitator as well. In terms of advanced stats, Frazier's BPM increased from a plus 2.5 in the regular season, which is good for 94th all time, to a plus 5.6 in the playoffs, good for 23rd all time. His win share per 48 jumped up from 0.176 to 0.193, true shooting percentage from 54.2% to 55.7%, and his free throw rate increased even from 33.8 to 34.9, so clearly he was able to draw more free throw attempts. Higher steal percentage in the postseason as well, so he was doing just about everything. In terms of net rating, it wasn't really accounted until the later half of Frazier's career, but even with the tail end of his career in New York and his last years with the Cavaliers, he still was at 104 offensive rating, the 98 defensive rating, and the 1 year in which he was healthy that accounted for his offensive rating was a significant improvement over his defensive rating, unlike his last 2 injury-riddled years on the Cavs. So just imagine how statistically efficient the Knicks would have been labeled during his championship seasons. So overall, to label Walt Frazier's career by a key word or phrase between overrated or underrated or properly rated, I think we gotta go with underrated. I mean, I didn't really dive much into how great he was defensively, I feel like, which he's arguably the GOAT defender at the point guard position. I think it's between him and Gary Payton, aka the Glove. He was an extremely efficient scorer and an efficient passer, even in his early Cavaliers days, which many would say was beyond his peak. With the Knicks, however, he was one of the best true point guard and even combo guards in one body at one time. As we said, one of the best two-way players in his era, and he proved to be clutch. His improvement from the regular season to the playoff transition is insane. And yeah, he never was a finals MVP, nor did he necessarily have the highest scoring outputs in the finals, but when it mattered most, he was there to finish the job, even if that meant becoming the primary option in those few games where Willis Reed was handling an injury. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think about Walt Frazier, because personally, I kind of laid it all out for you guys. I think he's pretty underrated, but do you think he's overrated? Do you think people are, ranking him higher than 41st all time? I haven't seen really anybody rank him top 30 or anything like that. I feel like the maximum, or the best, I should say, not the maximum, because that might be a higher number. But I think the best people are ranking him is maybe top 35, top 40, from the most part from what I've seen. But I feel like even a lot of people will rank him maybe top 50 or not even top 50. I've seen people that leave him off their top 10 point guards in NBA history, and that's just bizarre to me. But again, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, don't forget to hit it. And I think that's going to do it for me for this one. So yeah, I'm out. Peace.